just had. The Prime Minister, for the first time in this general election campaign, has interacted with the British public. How about that? And they rang in, they asked her questions, and they certainly, the people that rang in, were not pushovers because they asked her tough questions. What did I think of the interview overall? I think when it comes to all the personal questions, she's a very self-assured, confident person. She knows who she is. When it came to answering the questions, she puts herself there to say, look, I am going to be a strong leader. I am deeply experienced in politics, and I think all of that is certainly true. When it comes to answering tough questions, when Nick Ferrari pushed her again and again, are you going to raise taxes? And she answers, we've no plans to raise taxes. You know that means at some point she can raise taxes and say, look, I never, ever lied to the British public. And I felt the same about immigration. You know, when he said to her, well, look, you were Home Secretary for all those years, and immigration got nowhere near tens of thousands. What's going to happen now? She says, no, we must reduce immigration because it's having a negative effect upon the country. So I got the impression that if she wins the election, not very much will change. But that's not a reason to say that she won't win the election, because it's all about her versus the competition. So I want to listen again to her about whether she's going to put up taxes, and tell me what you think. See if you agree with me that she's left the door open to put taxes up. Have a listen.
We are a party that believes in actually trying to ensure that we have low taxes, rather than the instinct of the Labour Party, which is to put taxes up.
It doesn't quite answer the question. Will you be putting taxes up?
Well, what I'm saying is we have no plans to increase the level of tax.
For the full term?
No plans to increase the level of tax.
Was it President Bush Sr.? Read my lips, no new taxes. Well, he, despite having said that, I think it's pretty clear that taxes, certainly for people, certainly for the higher earners, taxes under Theresa May, I'm pretty confident, will be going up. And what you got there was a classic career politician answer. What she does not want to be called is a liar. Too many of our previous leaders have been accused of lying, and it's a horrible word, actually. But if it sticks to you as a politician, it's seriously bad news. Now, Brexit, clearly this election is about Brexit. And let's just hear what the Prime Minister defined as being a good Brexit deal.
A good, deep and special partnership with the European Union. We have a good trading relationship with the European Union. We're still cooperating with them on security.
Outside of the single
market. Well, with access to the single market, not a member of the single market. Because if you're a member, you have to abide by the European Court of Justice and free movement. Effectively, you're still a member of the European Union.
Well, I agree with her about that actually, if we did stay part of the single market, there's really not much point in leaving anyway. So she was very good and very clear on that. That is what she wants. As to whether that's where she's going to get to is a separate question. But at least the objective was clear. Now, there was also a lot in this interview about her life away from politics. And she was asked by Nick, and I guess it was a fairly tough question in a way, that how did she feel about not being able to have children?
It's been very sad. It just turned out not to be possible for us. Of course, we're not the only couple who finds themselves in that situation. And when you do, I suppose you just get on with life.
Well, there we are. But it was a pretty tough question, but I think she answered it pretty well. So on the personal stuff, I think she gets full marks for being honest and open. It's on the political stuff where I think we saw a bit more of the careerist. Now, she was also, then this was funny, and don't forget, in the last general election, I was conducting these sort of interviews as the leader of UKIP, and I was asked a whole host of questions, a whole host of personal questions, many of which I did my best not to answer, but Nick Ferrari even asked her about cookery. Try this.
I might do something like a slow roast shoulder of lamb.
Oh, right, slow roast. And what's the key to making that really work?
Well, it's making a really slow roast, so it really falls off the bone. Absolutely gorgeous.
So we'll analyse all of that. Had I been asked that question, I'd have said, well, actually, what I'd say is, why don't we pop down the pub, and they've got salt and vinegar, and they've got ready salted and peanuts. No, I wouldn't really. But there we are. So please respond. Call us on 0345 6060973. Text us at 84850. Tweet us at LBC using the hashtag Farage and LBC. And we are up live on Facebook now. 2 on LBC's page. So let us know what you think on any of those issues. Alan in Fleet, what did you make of the interview? Good, bad, indifferent?
Well, personality, she's a nice person. I'm not interested. I want to know about policy and the impact it's going to have on our country, on our public services. The one thing she talked about, personality, was the sense of public service from her father.
Yep.
Then I'm stunned. She's leading a party which is destroying public service. Public servants have not had pay rises for 10 years nearly. They've been pay freezes. They're thousands of pounds behind inflation. They're leaving in droves and they're being forced out, and the Tories do not care about that. That is going to destroy public service. The nurse spoke about, and the doctor spoke about, understaffing, losing staff, people leaving. She glossed over, we're putting more money in. The NHS have told us what we need. It's nonsense.
And that,
Alan,
extended. That extended, didn't it, beyond the NHS, but it actually went into the armed forces too.
Indeed. I don't trust the Tories on any form of public service provision at all. Jeremy Hunt has shown total disregard and contempt for doctors, imposing, and she's let him get away with it. She put him up to it, probably. She's not moving him because they want to do that job. She's letting him get on with it, so she is to blame as far as I'm concerned. I'm not interested in the personality. I want to know about policy and what it's going to do. And the first half of that interview was ultimately a waste when we could have been challenging her about what her party will do to this country.
Alan, I do understand that, but I repeat the point that British general elections, even though it's one member under first past the post per constituency to form a parliament, I'm afraid that they've become presidential. And because of that, it increasingly is about the personalities. And that, I think, is the reason that Nick asked those questions in the first part of the interview. When it comes to public services, I mean, clearly morale is bad in the armed forces. It's bad in the National Health Service. And last night we were debating education, and some indication from teachers that it's not very good in the education system either. Where do you think, Alan, the Tories get this wrong, or what is it Theresa May is missing? Is it about money, or is it something more fundamental?
I think it's a fundamental concept. They do not want a big state. They want a little state. They want as few ties to the public service as possible. They want to push everyone out into the private sector, and that's not workable. And the bit you talked about tax, I don't think it's only going to be a change of tax on high earners. I think they're going to get off lightly in comparison. They're going to attack tax on VAT, which is going to impact on the lowest paid most, and they'll up national insurance, which will impact on all the low paid.
Well, I think VAT...
That's where it's going to hit.
VAT they're going to keep, I think, where it is. But I sense, Alan, that the door is open for tax increases, possibly for quite a lot of us. Alan, thank you. Alan, completely unconvinced by what she said in response to disgruntled public sector workers from both the military and the National Health Service. I get on Twitter, what's wrong with you lot? She did well. She answered the questions she was asked about. Grow up, says Noah on Twitter. Why go to all the fuss? A way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Quarter pounder meal twice, says the dap. I quite like that. Actually, Nick's question was, if Donald Trump was coming round for dinner, what would you cook him? And I do happen to know that Trump likes quarter pounders and KFCs and all that kind of thing. So actually, why waste all your time? Because he'd probably prefer to have that. What exactly was that? Pointless and way too easy on a leader who has caused so much suffering, says Jackie. Well, these are all points of view. But I think on policy, Jackie, and you may say, the personal bit wasn't necessary. But on policy, she was asked some tough questions, and she was asked them more than once on several occasions. And sometimes with an interview, it isn't just because the interviewer screams and shouts that it makes it a tough interview. By asking a question gently, in some ways, how you answer that, perhaps people listen to it really rather more. With some interviewers in this game, and again I'm speaking from deep, long experience, with some interviewers in this game, it becomes more of a gladiatorial joust. actually it becomes more about the personality of the interviewer and the interviewee than it does on the answers that have been given by the interviewee. And I don't think Nick fell into that trap for one little moment. Fed up of hearing about how she slow roasts. Maybe she should work on a trade deal first, says Alfie. So we're getting a lot of different reaction in here. George in Stratford-upon-Avon. Put us all right. Put us all right. Was it a good interview? Was it a bad interview? Come on, solve it for me.
Thought, well, first of all, I'm a big admirer of yourself, and I think if it wasn't UKIP, you'd be in the Tories. Right? Don't know what you were in when you were in the city, but you probably didn't vote Labour. I thought it was excellent. I've been a Conservative voter since Harold Macmillan, and I firmly believe, never voted anything else, not even when Wilson was in or.
So that was that was 1958. 8, right? So
you weren't around then, Nigel, were you?
So no, George, I wasn't not that far away, but I was. So you are of pensionable age, George. Would that be right?
I am. Yes,
yep.
I'm the old 70, the 70. Yeah.
Yep.
But, I used to drive a cab in London. I picked you up a couple of times before you were famous.
Oh gosh, did you really?
Yeah. You gave me a tip.
God, thank goodness for that.
You would, because you're British through and through, aren't you?
Well, was I well behaved, George?
Yeah, you weren't intoxicated or anything like that.
Well, that's very unusual.
No. And I think if you had her around, she'd come and she'd have a gin and tonic, I think.
Right.
But on a serious note, I think she's. Listen, you know yourself. You've been in politics a long time and worked in the city. That prime ministers have a short lifespan. Thatcher probably had, first year like Blair, first year pretty good. Then the Falklands saved, and then it all kind of goes wrong. So at some point, she'll win the election by a landslide. I feel that the public would get disillusioned. I mean, I can't remember anyone since all those prime ministers really that she always get criticism, don't they? But I think because in a positive way, she couldn't have children. But how many prime ministers have been in number 10 without Ted Heath? I can't remember another one. So in a roundabout way, she will. Devote all her time to the politics.
No, I get that, George. I get that, George. And I also get you can't lead forever without a degree of disillusionment. I'll make one prediction, George. If David Cameron is right, and if what he told that voter on the streets of Nantwich is right, and I have half a feeling that it might be, that the reason she's calling this election is to get a thumping majority so that her hardline Eurosceptics can't hold her to ransom over a Brexit deal, which now means she can make big concessions over the course of the next couple of years. That, George, I think is when you will get public disenchantment, because I really do believe that Brexit voters that vote for Mrs May in this election, listening to what she's saying, will want her to deliver the full Brexit. And if she doesn't do that, George, they'll be upset. George, I thank you, not only for your call, for your kindness, for your views, but for saying nice things about me 25 years ago. Thank goodness for that. There's an awful lot that wouldn't do that. Right now, you're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 7:15.
Weeknights on LBC start with Nigel Farage from 7, and from 10, Ian Collins.
We've got nurses using food banks. That's fake news. That's absolutely fake news, because it's news that's attempting to advance a political narrative. Former man who used to work in IT is using a food bank. Not very romantic, not very sexy, that is it. But nurses, Florence Nightingale in a food bank.
Leading Britain's conversation. Weeknights on LBC.
Is your company thinking of moving office? If so, this could be the perfect opportunity to revolutionise your business, transform your workplace, and inspire your staff. Speak to Maris Interiors, who've been designing and fitting out workplaces for over 3 decades. Book your free consultation, attend a free seminar, or get your free guidebook. Go to officerelocation.co.uk. Maris. Workplace Design Experts.
The British Heart Foundation, London to Brighton bike ride. It's for the old-timers and the first-timers, the solo riders and the team players. The confident, the curious, the fast, not the furious, the catch-me-uppers, the get-off-and-pushers, the scenery enjoyers, the photo finishers. It's not winner takes all, it's all for the win, and all to fund BHF's research. Because on Sunday the 18th of June, it's not a race, it's a lifesaver. To take part, search London to Brighton bike ride now.
Clive, Mudstone Wolf. Whale music? You must be one stressed-out private landlord.
Yes, I am!
Your tenants are struggling financially and can't pay their rent. But you're with Direct Line. They'll repay any unpaid rent until your tenants are out. So drop the stress ball. It'll all be over soon. Ah, that's better.
Claim back unpaid rent after 1 month's arrears with rent guarantee. Can your insurance do that? Search Direct Line Landlord. Cover purchased as part of legal expenses add-on. Qualifying criteria apply. Restricted claims for existing tenants in the first 90 days when product first purchased.
The Audi approved used event starts Friday. Drop everything. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
Want to give your home a refresh? At B&Q, Leyland 10-litre matte emulsion paint is down from £12 to just £10. Hurry though, offer ends Monday. So, for great deals this weekend, come to B&Q. Offer starts Friday 12th of May. Some stores excluded. See DIY.com for details.
Wilbur and I are on a mission with British Gas to help make Britain's homes smarter. We've been all over the country helping install our new smart meters and he's worn out, poor lad. You'll see how much energy you're using in pounds and pence, putting you in control of your energy use. And your smart meters automatically send us your readings, so you'll always have accurate bills.
Join the millions already enjoying the benefits. Search British Gas smart meters, subject to eligibility.
So, Joe, keep calm. What's causing the anxiety?
I need my business phone system to work on any device.
To take the calls anywhere?
And save me money.
Like saving with unlimited UK mobile and international calls?
Yes, yes.
Ah, I see the problem. You need to take the Vonage.
Ah.
Vonage, the perfect phone system for small business. Packed with clever features to make your business better. Keep calm and talk clever with plans from £12 a month. Visit vonage.co.uk. Excludes VAT at 20%. Terms apply.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
We're taking your reaction to Prime Minister May's interview as part of the Leaders' Live debate exclusively here on LBC with Nick Ferrari. And we will hear from all the party leaders over the course of the coming weeks. Clive Bull and the Property Hour will be back here from 9, but until then, you've got me. And I want to hear your reactions to the interview, how you feel about the PM, how you feel about the Tory campaign so far, plus maybe the fun bit. You can ring up and challenge, criticise, condemn anything I've had to say on this subject. I'm going next to Tina in Solihull. Tina, good evening. What did you think of Mrs May tonight in the interview?
Good evening, Mr Farage. I felt that the whole interview was synthetic, I believe is the word.
Right.
There are thousands of people out here, by the way, may I say, that actually voted Brexit, but were not born in this country. And a lot of people use the word Brexit or the title Brexit as a way of expressing their own racism. Well, there are people of colour. There are Asian people, there are African Caribbean people. There are lots of people that were not born in this country.
I know that, Tina. I know that.
I'm saying is, right, OK. And I know you know, Nick, Nigel, I know you know because you've spoken on behalf of African Caribbean people and Asian people that came into this country in the 50s and helped to build it to what it is. But even our backs are being walked on. Even we, some of us, have had enough. And when we speak about that, when we are getting the blame today, 2017... not having houses.
Ah, right, okay.
We're getting my generation. I'm in my 40s.
Yep.
My parents' generation, even my daughter is experiencing racism because of the new influx of immigrants that have come here and walked on my parents' back.
I'm afraid, Tina...
Nobody's recognised that.
Yeah, no,
and that's what I'm angry about.
Tina, I understand that completely. I mean, look, we, from 1950 until nearly the year 2000, had net migration into this country running at an average of about 30,000 people a year. For all those decades, it ran at about 30,000 a year. It is now running at 10 times that number, and quite possibly, Tina, with illegal immigrants and trafficking, it's quite a lot higher than that. And I think you're right. I think the fact that it's got out of control has actually led to a worsening of relations right across our community. Now, our Prime Minister least these days, our Prime Minister acknowledges and recognises the fact that it's running at too high a number. The problem is that when she was asked the question by the caller, and when it was followed up by Nick, I mean, Tina, did you believe there was even a chance that she would reduce net migration back to something like 30,000 people a year?
No.
No, well, nor did I either. Nor did I either. I think it's going to continue to run at very, very high numbers, and I think that is bad for all our communities, Tina. I genuinely do. And to your point about Brexit, yeah, I remember going into Birmingham, going into the centre of Birmingham. There's that big market, isn't there, in the centre of Birmingham, and everything is there, meat and fish and clothes and goodness knows what else. And I remember going into that market, and a very large number of those businessmen and women were foreign-born, but living in the United Kingdom, and they were Brexit to a man and woman. So don't worry, I do completely understand that large numbers of those communities voted Brexit, and large numbers, Tina, of those communities want us, post-Brexit, to re-establish a better relationship with the Commonwealth countries, who are our truest best friends in the world, Tina.
Yes, definitely.
Definitely.
Our MP here in Solihull,
yep.
I actually because I actually have to experience a lot of racism on a daily basis. There are occasions where I don't want to go out.
Tina, I can't talk about individual constituencies because there is a general election going on. But the fact you've experienced racism in recent years and hadn't in previous years, I think says a lot about government policy, where it's going wrong. And I thank you very much indeed for your call. Jane in Raysbury, did you enjoy the interview, Jane?
I did, Nigel. I thought it was very good, actually. Much better than I expected it to be.
Go on.
I thought it was a real humanising interview, and I really liked the fact that I know some of the callers are saying he went soft on her, but I don't agree with that. I think that I've listened to Nick Farage for many years, and he doesn't go soft on anyone. And I think the difference was that she knew her facts and figures, and that's exactly what I want in a Prime Minister. Isn't
that the point, Jane? Had she, when she was asked, how many soldiers are there in the British Army, bumbled and stumbled and given a figure between 10 and 1 million somewhere, then I think she would have been met with exactly the same degree of derision that other politicians have been who can't answer simple questions. So I would certainly agree with that.
Yeah, and rightly so. I think if she'd said there were 11 billion of them, or whatever Diane Abbott is supposed to have said, then it would have been a different story. But I thought it was a really good interview. I didn't think it was soft at all. I think maybe there were some things that we didn't get a chance to cover because it was only a half an hour, but I thought generally she gave a very good account of herself, and I'm very much looking forward to see how Corbyn does. I don't think he's going to do so well. Well,
and I think also to all those people listening, watching right now, who say, look, Nick was too soft going on this personal stuff, I think actually you'll have to judge Nick at the end of all these interviews. Because it's up. He needs to be even-handed, doesn't he, with each of these interviews, and I'm sure he will be. And an earlier caller, Jane, said to me, well, they thought it all looked a bit staged, a bit. Well, believe me, I went and spoke to Nick before he came down to the studio, and there's no way this was staged. He was getting ready. And not knowing exactly what was going to happen next. So there's no question of that. Jane, do you normally vote Conservative?
I do, normally. I was a little unsure this time around, to be honest, because of the whole Brexit thing, and I am a Brexiteer, so I have a different view on this than some of your listeners might do, but I guess I've kind of looked at some of the Lib Dem stuff and tried to balance that, but for me, I think Theresa May is the right leader for me.
Lovely. Jane, I thank you, and I'm going to ask Connor in Nunhead. Connor, good interview, bad interview? Has she got your vote?
I think she did very well, but I think anyone could have told you that she was good at presenting herself before the interview. I think, like you said a minute ago, we should compare her interviews to Corbyn's and the next ones that will be happening over the next 4 weeks.
Yes.
The point on has she captured me, I wouldn't say so. I voted Conservative. I'm 23 at the moment. I voted Conservative previously because I thought they were going to fix the surplus of the country. We owed a lot of money, and we still do.
We still do.
And what she's done, I don't... how to say it? She expects people my age to just fall in line behind her and go, yes, we've got a plan. Corbyn and all that have no idea what they're doing. Just follow us. Mum's the word. But I need to actually know. She hasn't talked about any policy issues that I actually care about. There's a lot of things that I want to talk about, but she just doesn't seem to talk about them. No one does.
Well, I mean, she is talking about... OK, there are lots of issues that she is talking about, but, I mean, what's the one... Connor, had you had the chance to ask her a question, what would you have asked?
I was typing a question to the lines were busy, and she was only half an hour. I tried to get a question. What I was going to ask, on housing, actually, because everyone's sort of diving skin deep at the moment, what I want to know is... There's over 1 million houses that are empty in the UK at the moment. Both parties, Conservatives just said that they're going to have some new ideas on housing policy in building all these new houses. But what about these houses that are already empty, whether they be council houses or whatever? Those are empty. And even more amazingly, houses in Belgravia, these £1 million houses.
I know.
I went into the. Do you remember the Russian-owned one back in February? I went in there, and you see these giant derelict buildings that are completely empty in the centre of London, and it makes you go crazy. It's like, what is? There's homeless people on.
Well, and there are investors from the Far East buying brand new flats, not bothering to put anyone in them, and just keeping empty flats for the sheer property investment in real estate. No, Connor, I get that. However, even with all the empty buildings, and even with the idea that actually, with boarded up shops in many town centres, perhaps town centres could become places where people actually live again because they're shopping out of town. Despite all of that, nobody, Connor, or at least not this Prime Minister, and I don't think the opposition leaders, nobody yet has really answered how they're going to solve the housing crisis. Connor, I thank you very much for your call. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 8:30 and time for the news with Rupert Martier.
The Prime Minister has told LBC the Conservatives have no plans to put up taxes if they win the election. Theresa May has defended the Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt. She set out her vision for a good Brexit deal and also announced plans to increase help for those with mental health problems. She also addressed her life outside politics, saying the death of her parents when she was in her 20s had quite an impact on her.
There I was without the two people who had brought me up and who had meant so much to me throughout my life. So it did have an impact. And I think part of that impact actually was about sort of reinforcing the sort of belief in and importance of public service that I'd learnt from my parents.
Elsewhere, the Lib Dems and UKIP have criticised Labour's manifesto, but Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn says it offers a Britain where nobody's ignored, nobody's forgotten and nobody is left behind. LBC weather. Mild and cloudy overnight, with showers moving into most areas by morning, a low of 12 Celsius. Tomorrow, warm and increasingly humid with sunny spells. Rain possible through the day, a high of 19 degrees.
LBC Travel, good evening. I'm Andy Lake. In East London, the A13 is queuing westbound approaching the Lodge Avenue junction in Barking, where the outside lane of 3 is closed. Delays there back to the Goresbrook interchange. In central London, Earls Court, the A4 is slow now. That's eastbound approaching North End Road. The inside lane of 4 has been blocked by a breakdown. In Hertfordshire, the M1 still has a lane closed on the London-bound entry slip, following an ongoing police investigation at junction 9 for the A5 in Redbourne. Into Cambridgeshire, the A14 is closed still between 32 for Histon and 33 for Milton to deal with a serious collision that happened around 2.5 hours ago. It's still very slow between the M11 and the A10 as a result in both directions. In Northamptonshire, the M1 is down to just one lane northbound to recover a lorry that's broken down between 17 for Coventry and 18 for Rugby. And in Devon, the A38 Tamar Bridge is closed for a police investigation in Plymouth. For more real-time traffic updates, go to lbc.co.uk.
This is LBC.
Sparks will fly this week at Lidl when you fall for their light-sensitive auto-darkening welding helmet for just $29.99. And what about their inverter welder? That's only $69.99. Hurry down to Lidl and strike whilst the iron's hot. From Thursday 11th of May at Lidl. Subject to availability in may vary selected stores.
We've been thinking about pruning. Not your peonies or your privet, but your cost of living. And how, from broadband to mobile phones, these days we're all looking for ways to trim our spending. And then we thought, couldn't we help you cut back on your biggest outgoing? And we thought, yes, we could. So we'll always try to help you remortgage to a better rate and save on your monthly repayments. Mortgages for how life is now. NatWest. We are what we do.
Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
Don't ignore the workplace. It's the law to have a work... Even if you work from home and only employ one person, you'll still need a work... You'll still need to offer a workplace pension. Ah, finally. I got your attention. Don't ignore the workplace pension. It's the law. Get to know your responsibilities with help from the pensions regulator. Visit workplacepensions.gov.uk.
Nobody likes the unknown, especially when it comes to selling your home. So don't choose an estate agent, choose Property Rescue. They'll simply buy your property direct, which means you could exchange, with money in the bank, in just 48 hours. So, no need to worry about the unknown of selling on the open market. Get that just sold feeling with Property Rescue. Fast forward to peace of mind at propertyrescue.co.uk.
In Britain, transit means business. Business for... and... or... and at your local transit show live, it means money-saving business. Visit your nearest participating Ford dealer between the 13th and 21st of May, take a test drive, and you'll save £500 on selected new Ford commercial vehicles. Ford, go further.
To qualify for the additional £500 customer saving off the recommended retail price of selected new Ford commercial vehicles, you must test drive any new Ford commercial vehicle between the 13th and 21st of May 2017. Contract between 13th and 21st of May 2017. Register between 13th of May and 31st of December 2017 at participating dealers only. Excludes Ranger XL and XLT models.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
Clive Ball's coming up at 9 with the Property Hour, but for me, until the top of the hour, for now you've got me, Nigel Farage, reacting to Theresa May's interview with Nick Ferrari. The first time in this election campaign she has spoken directly to, yes, the general public. How about that? And we didn't hear strong and stable leadership, and we didn't hear coalition of chaos. Actually, we had an interview, half of which was about her as a person, what her makeup is, her background, her thoughts, her beliefs, how she sells herself in terms of her leadership qualities, and the rest on policy coming through phone calls from the general public, some of whom were dissatisfied with the state of public services, others who were concerned about immigration or Brexit. So over the next few weeks, all the other party leaders will come on too and get the same treatment. And the Twitterati are busy. Prepare to have Brexit watered down. Don't vote Tory until we know their plan. After all, the rhetoric, May is a Remainer, says Paul. So, Mrs May has over 100 cookbooks and enjoys a shoulder of slow-roasted lamb. What an insult to those using food banks, says Judith. I'm not so sure I buy that. Interestingly, there is a separate debate going on through social media. And Clara says on Twitter, is it not sexist to ask May the children career question? Because I never hear it being asked of male politicians. And I've got another one, an anonymous text. Can you tell me why male politicians never get asked about their childless state? Well, I guess there is a biological reason that this question gets asked, but actually, there are probably as many men in the country in relationships who haven't got children that perhaps would have wanted to. But you're right, I don't see a time when male politicians are going to get asked that question very soon. Well, Zane says, swinging my vote to the Conservatives, well done, Theresa May. Most of you enjoying the interview. Most of you thinking that it was good. Come on, Nige, concede the fact that she couldn't drop immigration that much while in the EU chains. Yes, I know, a point I made to her, week after week after week for 6 years. Why, Home Secretary May, are you pretending to the British public? Why are you standing for election telling us you will cut immigration when we have an open door to the European Union? Answer, there came none. But we were assured, don't worry though, because the non-EU bit will be cut substantially, and it wasn't. That's my point when it comes to immigration. And remember, this has been the biggest issue in British politics for the last few years. Every single poll asking people what's their main concern. Immigration's been at the top, and here we have a general election where effectively they're trying to bury it as an issue despite their record of failure. And as for the Labour manifesto, well, of course, it's all been read already, but it looks like the Labour manifesto is basically not even going to attempt to control immigration at all. Steve, in Burgess Hill, did you enjoy the interview?
Yes, I did.
Good.
I thought she was excellent. Couple of points.
Yep.
One of your callers, Alan, he was going on about how the Tories, the public sector, haven't had a pay rise in 10 years.
Yeah.
Which I don't believe that the Tories were in power 10 years ago.
That's very true, and there have been public sector pay rises, just not very big ones.
Yes, and I also believe that when she talks about mental health in the Equalities Act, I believe that there's quite a bit more needs doing than just work as Equality Act within the health service.
Yeah, I mean, mental health has been really put to the back of the queue, hasn't it, for a very, very long time, Steve?
Well, I'm lucky because I've been in the mental health service now for a year.
Yeah.
But as I was saying to your producer, I've had more problems with the Department of Work and Pensions than anybody else.
Have you?
Yeah.
Right. What, obstructionism or just bureaucracy not connecting or...
I've got all these medical professionals telling me that I've got complex PTSD.
Yeah.
I'll never get well from it.
Yeah.
They're teaching me how to manage it.
Yeah.
But then you write to the Department of Work and Pensions, fill all the paperwork, and you've got to go for an assessment.
Yeah, I've heard this before, that it's not very joined up. But I suppose, frankly, Steve, you could make that point to May or Corbyn or any of the other big leaders, couldn't you?
It's not just them. It's in general that mental health needs a bigger stage.
Yeah. No, well, do you know something? I think it's getting it, and I think we did a show a few months back purely on mental health, and we got the lady that runs SANE to come in and explain to us how difficult it's been for those campaigning on behalf of mental health. But Steve, I tell you something, it is now being listened to, and I wish you well in terms of the treatment with your condition, and thank you very much indeed for your call. Terry in Blackpool, good, bad or indifferent?
Terrible.
Right.
Awful. In fact, I would say it was an insult to my intelligence, frankly. It really was. I mean, the first part of the interview, in my opinion, was just like to garner sympathy. The point about having no kids and losing a parent at an early age.
Yeah.
Later on, a couple of good questions from people, but Ferrari never came back enough. He never kind of badgered her enough, like on the immigration question. The question was, why should we believe you after promises that have been made before?
Okay.
And she didn't answer that question. Ferrari should have got it, and he didn't. And you, Nigel, I've had some very difficult interviews, and I've seen them.
Oh, so I certainly have, Terry. God.
Of course you have, and we've seen that. What you wouldn't give for that interview? Eh? I mean, it was a stroll for her. And Ferrari, I've seen him before, and he's with some people. You know what I mean? He goes the extra mile, but he certainly didn't do that today.
Well, yeah. Look, he's taken an approach to this interview that he will replicate with Corbyn and all of the others, Terry. That's the point. He does need to be consistent, and I completely get that, and I totally understand that. But I do think, actually, all right, we had the personal stuff, and you think it was a means of her, getting sympathy. But on immigration, for argument's sake, he did question this. I mean, let's just have a little listen to it. Terry, stay there. Listen.
The way that you do this is by ensuring that you're constantly working at this system. What happens with
you were Home
immigration?
Secretary. It's not like you were in charge of Northern Ireland or you're in charge of culture, media and so on. You were the one who could have influenced it, and you just haven't, as the caller suggests.
And we did influence it, Nick. We did see net migration coming down. We did make changes. We saw over 900 colleges closed because people were being able to abuse our immigration system and effectively come here to work rather than to study.
So, Terry, he did challenge it pretty toughly, didn't he?
To a point, he did. But the question was, why should we believe you? And that's what everybody else is asking.
Yes.
I mean, the promise before, why should we believe you? And he didn't get at that at all. And I've seen him interview people, Diane Abbott and what have you, and quite rightly, put her to the sword.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And he didn't do that. He didn't do that today. And we had ample opportunity to. And, I don't think he gave 100%. For whatever reason,
OK, well, that's a matter of opinion, Terry, of course. And tell me something. Do you believe Theresa May when she says she's going to cut immigration?
No.
Do you know what, Terry, in Blackpool? Nor do I. And I thank you very much indeed for your call. Amanda in Hereford, what did you think of the interview? Was she good?
Hello, Nigel. I think she gave a competent performance. I didn't detect any warmth. In fact, she came over as a bit buttoned up and awkward, I think. At least we didn't get the strong and stable...
I know. What a relief, wasn't it? Not to hear that. Oh, we didn't get Coalition of Chaos, and I mean that was the best bit in a way, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the interview got to the kernel of things really, and you know, it was all very well interesting. You know, very interesting hearing about her upbringing. I mean, she clearly didn't get the memo about St Francis of Assisi either, did she? But
Amanda, when you say didn't get to the kernel of it, what do you think the kernel of it is with Theresa May's bid to win this election?
She wasn't, but I think what I'm seeing is, you know, I'm old enough to remember old Labour from the 70s. I don't see that in what Corbyn is offering, actually, but I can't remember a more vile collection of crooks, cheats and casuists as populate this current Conservative Party, and I think we're being manipulated. I think the knives are out for Corbyn because they all know that he'll start derailing their gravy trains, and they're determined to get rid of him.
Well, Amanda, that may be true, and we'll come to Corbyn, of course, in time when he does this interview. But whether I believe Theresa May and what she says or not, and I'm deeply sceptical.
I think she's out of her depth, actually, and I shudder to think what she's going to be like in our negotiations.
But Amanda, the point is...
promoted beyond her ability.
Amanda, the point is this. Whether I agree with her, whether I believe her on tax or immigration or whatever, and I'm pretty sceptical, as I've said tonight, when she's out there, it does, at least to the public, sound like a very clear message. I think the Labour problem, and I won't dwell on it now, but I think the Labour problem, Amanda, is that when Corbyn is asked a question like, are we going to leave the European Union, regardless of the renegotiations, 6 times in a row, he can't answer it. And that, I think, is the nub of where this general election is going at the moment. I think for it to change, Labour have to give some much, much clearer, conciser policy direction. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I make the point that she hasn't been out there, that they've been keeping her well away from the microphone because they know that Corbyn would just blow her out of the water, and that's why she won't do the debate. I mean, there must have been campaign managers face-palming all over the shop when she made the comment about fox hunting. I mean, we know the Conservative Party is populated by corporate gits who sell their grannies to a glue factory and...
Well, Amanda, you know, look, Amanda, I mean, I know you feel very strongly about this, and I've fought a long-running battle against the Conservative Party, but they're not all horrible corporate gits who go out and fox hunt. Amanda, I thank you for the passion that we got there from Hereford. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It's 8:45.
Coming up at 9 on LBC, Clive Bull.
The current state of the housing market, advice on being a successful landlord, and when do you need to get a full survey? Your questions answered in the Property Hour.
Clive Bull on LBC.
Oh. What's the anxiety this time, Joe?
Oh, I think I'm losing it.
In the mind?
No, losing the sales. I need to record, join and listen to calls.
What, to boost the profits?
Yes, and take business calls on any device.
Ah, I've got the answer. You need to take the Vonage.
Yes.
Vonage, the perfect phone system for small business. Packed with clever features to make your business better. Keep calm and talk clever with plans from £12 a month. Visit vonage.co.uk. Excludes VAT at 20%. Terms apply.
The British Heart Foundation, London to Brighton bike ride. It's for the old-timers and the first-timers, the solo riders and the team players. The confident, the curious, the fast, not the furious, the catch-me-uppers, the get-off-and-pushers, the scenery enjoyers, the photo finishers. It's not winner takes all, it's all for the win. And all to fund BHF's research. Because on Sunday the 18th of June, it's not a race, it's a lifesaver. To take part, search London to Brighton bike ride now.
Want to give your home a refresh? At B&Q, Leyland 10 litre matte emulsion paint is down from £12 to just £10. Hurry though, offer ends Monday. So, for great deals this weekend, come to B&Q. Offer starts Friday 12th of May. Some stores excluded. See DIY.com for details.
Clive, what's doing Wolf? Whale music? You must be one stressed-out private landlord.
Yes, I am!
Your tenants are struggling financially and can't pay their rent. But you're with Direct Line. They'll repay any unpaid rent until your tenants are out. So drop the stress ball. It'll all be over soon. Ah, that's better.
Claim back unpaid rent after 1 month's arrears with rent guarantee. Can your insurance do that? Search Direct Line Landlord. Cover purchased as part of legal expenses add-on. Qualifying criteria apply. Restricted claims for existing tenants in the first 90 days when product first purchased.
After a long day at work, there's nothing Mark likes more than cooking a stir-fry. What he doesn't like is Gaz and Lecky getting out of control. So Mark's had a smart meter installed. Now he's able to see exactly how much energy he's using in pounds and pence and stir-fry to his heart's content. Only your energy supplier can carry out your smart meter installation, so contact them today.
Driving has a new sound. Calm, quiet, yet exhilarating. It's driven by a new kind of energy, and it instills a new kind of feeling. But don't take our word for it. Discover the BMW i3 at the BMW i Electric Experience from the 19th to the 21st of May at your nearest BMW centre. Search BMW i3.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
You're responding, I'm responding, we're responding to Theresa May's interview live with Nick Ferrari earlier on this evening, when she even took calls from members of the public. And some of you think it was interesting to hear about the fact she hadn't got children, that her parents died when she was young, that she's got 100 cookbooks at home. Others think it was all too soft and they couldn't give a damn. They want to know about policy. Well, in the last half of the interview, you did get, or the last two-thirds really, you did get policy. You got criticism over the state of public services and morale. You've got criticism over the tens of thousands immigration figure, and a big question about tax and whether she will, as Prime Minister, put up tax, answer to which there clearly came none. I get on Twitter, glad to hear her clarify that we will leave the single market. Not sure if I trust the Tories to carry out a full Brexit, says Chloe. Well, Chloe, see what David Cameron said today. David Cameron, who clearly can't resist now being back in the front line, out campaigning on the streets of Nantwich, and says, yes, 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 of course, we had to have the election. It's vitally important she has a big majority so that those that want extreme Brexit within her own party get watered down. So there you are. I have to say, it was the only time in the interview with Nick Ferrari where I saw Theresa May looking really discomforted, and she certainly, even if she does enjoy cooking, show-roasted shoulder of lamb won't be cooking it for David and Samantha any time soon. Lee in Bedford, good, bad or indifferent? How was the interview?
Well, not too bad, not too good, but a bit in the middle.
Right.
But I really wanted to ask her, thank her for bringing up, to do with mental health. It's about time that was highlighted properly now.
I think that is now happening, Lee, isn't it? And I think in the next few weeks there'll be a lot more talk. Nick Clegg did talk about mental health in the last general election, and I think this time round it's going to get a much higher profile.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask her a question.
Yeah.
I saw yesterday on the internet, I don't know, I haven't seen it on the national or local news yet. There was a war veteran up in, I think it was York area yesterday.
Yes.
And Jeremy Corbyn was up there.
Yes.
And he wanted to ask Jeremy Corbyn about witch hunting veterans.
Yes.
With what's happened with the IRA and
there is the case of this guy.
He done a runner, and he was jeered because he wanted to know, and Labour activists were jeering him for wanting to know.
I know.
And the woman actually had a go at Labour activists, saying this man fought for this country for idiots basically like you who are jeering him. You don't know what respect is, and you want people to vote for your party, basically.
Yeah, it was a bad advert. Yeah, this is the case of the 75-year-old who has already twice been cleared of not behaving inappropriately in Northern Ireland back in the 1970s, who it appears is now for the third time under investigation and possibly trial. And, yeah, I have to say the veteran, Corbyn's supporters, or some of Corbyn's supporters, really weren't very nice. Mind you, indeed, we had some people outside this building earlier who weren't really being very nice either. That's life, that's politics. Lee, who are you going to vote for, Lee?
Well, I'm torn between UKIP and, obviously, Mrs May. So
okay.
I want to see what their manifestos say first before I decide.
Very good. Lee, excellent. Thank you for your call. Phil in Crystal Palace.
Hi, Nigel.
So, how does that interview look to you?
So it's a tale of two interviews, really, isn't it? The first half looked to me like a repeat
Is that
of the
because
one
you're...
show.
Is that Crystal Palace? It sounds like you're a football commentator. A game of two halves. Go on.
I'm actually a Chelsea fan, mate. But
oh, right. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Crystal Palace, Upper Norwood, you might call it, but it's South London anyway.
Okay. Yeah, and of course, the team look pretty safe, don't they? Crystal Palace should be staying up in the...
I think they look far from safe, to be perfectly honest.
Well, they're on
lost one of their key players.
They're on 38 points, aren't they?
But yeah, they are. However, I did think we were here to talk about May's interview,
go on.
rather than Crystal Palace Football Club or in fact Jeremy Corbyn, to be quite honest.
Go on.
But the entire interview was interesting in its whole. But the first half is a repeat of all the material that was covered on the One show on Monday night, I think it was.
Yeah.
Apart from shoes, obviously, shoes clearly don't work well on radio, so.
Yes.
I'm just puzzled. Are these things that Mrs May is happy to talk about and wants to talk about? Half the programme taken up with talking about that, when clearly all the people that are ringing in are wanting to talk about real issues. They want to talk about issues that are important to them personally, their financial issues, childcare issues, NHS issues, work issues, not cooking and childlessness and unfortunate bereavement, I'm afraid. It's really not what I'd expect half the programme to be taken up with, especially, as I say, when we've heard it all
on the One show
this week on the One show.
Okay, Phil, you make that point very strongly. What about the show where the public did ask her questions? What did you make of that?
I thought it was excellent, actually, and I was actually pleasantly surprised at Nick Ferrari. I do think he gave her a reasonably hard time, and I hope it's commensurate with the other leaders when they come on. So, yeah, I thought it was very good, to be honest. It's what people want to talk about. Unfortunately, going on, we're still hearing more and more about her cooking, etc. But the issues raised by people were excellent. One of the things that does concern me, and I have family issues with mental health as well.
Yeah.
So that's quite important. And I'm slightly puzzled at people praising Mrs May. One of your callers praised her for a Mind Centre, which is a charity outlet, not an NHS outlet. But this government, which Theresa May has served in for the last 7 years, has devastated NHS services, and the hardest cuts have fallen on mental health services. And yet, apparently, we're to praise Mrs May for her great stance on mental health.
I know.
Doesn't stack up.
I know. Phil, with all of this stuff, it's very difficult for anyone to know what to believe, because the minister's asked the question, what about the cuts? The minister says spending's at an all-time high, and it's difficult for people actually to make their minds up on it. But Phil, I take your points about the interview. I understand what you're saying. There are others who would not have watched the One show the other evening, who perhaps for the first time would have found out some things about Mrs May personally they hadn't known before. I don't know. James in Sutton Coldfield, you are the last caller of the evening. You've got 30 seconds to make your point, James.
Hello, Nigel. Great to talk to you. Almost 1 year on from the Sutton Coldfield EU debate with Heseltine.
I was there with Heseltine. I thought Heseltine wanted to throw me off the platform. It was so passionate.
Nice and balanced interview. I think from a PR point of view, it's very good because they've got to try and make us seem a bit less cold, a bit less unapproachable, because I think Tim Farron and Corbyn have got a little bit of an edge over on that so far, just in terms of being seen as approachable. It was just a shame that he couldn't have asked her about the Labour manifesto leak, just to see, just to test on being able to sort of comment dynamically on...
Although, James, the object was to speak to her, and the object in the last hour and a half has been to speak about her, although we have got diverted off onto Corbyn and various other things. But, James, are you convinced enough to want to vote for
her? I'm afraid I'm not, to be honest.
You're not. OK, James, listen, thank you. Thank you to all of you who've called in, texted in, tweeted in, a tweet here. Nick should have asked her, how much she was paying Nigel Farage to work as her policy advisor, Lawrence Gardner. Well, she certainly does sound a bit like me on a lot of things that she's saying. And one of the reasons for the interview is for you to judge whether you believe what she said in answer to those questions about tax and immigration and everything else. So we've been taking your reactions to Prime Minister May, who earlier took part in the Leaders' Live debate exclusively here on LBC. And over the coming weeks, we'll hear from all the main party leaders battling for number 10. For Labour, Jeremy Corbyn, Tim Farron for the Lib Dems, Paul Nuttall for UKIP. I'm back on Monday evening from 7. Coming up at 10, it's Ian Collins. But up next, it's Clive Bull.
Thank you very much. And it's the Property Hour coming up after the news with Direct Line Landlord Insurance. On the panel to answer your questions tonight, our regular expert Kate Faulkner from Property Checklists and Alan Milstein, Chairman of the Residential Property Surveyors Association.